Welcome to the Leadership Transition course. In this module, we will continue with the topic organizational structures, goals, values, and culture. In this way, as a way of leading your team, we would like to start showing you what are the things you have to consider so that you can properly lead your team. So we've talked about personality check for yourself, behavioral models, and all kinds of things. But then there are still other important things when you really start leading. So one of them is organizational structure. This is really what defines how your organization do things, like task allocation, how you coordinate and supervise things, like how things are directed towards achieving organizational goals. And they really affect how people work, the kind of actions that are taken. And this forms the foundation on which certain policies and procedures are made. Therefore, as a leader or manager, it's important that you understand the structure of your organization. How is it set up? What kind of impact does it have? How much authority as a leader do I have? What are my boundaries? These are very important things. But then there's also the organizational values, which are the guiding principles, which are tied to the structure, but gives direction and purpose. So an organization does have its structure, and in that structure there are things that are valued, and these help companies to manage their interaction both with their employees and their customers. So as a leader, it's important that you also understand what are the values that are important to my organization. And if you go from one organization to another, the structure and the value can be different. And then, based on the structure and values, of course, they are always there to meet certain goals, which are more or less the strategic objective. Every company has a goal it wants to achieve. And in order to achieve that goal, they need to set up a structure and set up certain values. And if you as a leader understand those goals and the expected outcome that is, seen by the company that they expect from every individual, then you are able to kind of put the business merits, integrate that into the project or work you do or your group that you guide or manage, and lead them and manage them in a way that they all tend towards that goal. And then there is the culture, which is also as a result of the impact of the structure and what kind of values and goals. But then remember that in every organization, you work with different people with different expectations and values and culture. But then an organization also has a way that it does things, its philosophy and what it values. So the culture is born out of the values and the structure, which are aimed towards the goals. And this creates shared attitude and belief and customs. So in some companies, it's more relaxed. Things are flexible. In others, it's really strict with policies and rules and procedures. So as a leader, it's very important to understand these four things: the structure, the values, the goals, the culture, and also the vision, because that helps a lot. And if you would take an example of an organizational structure, in this case, we look at two types, which in between there are others. So functional structure and projectized structure. Functional, that if you compare that to you as a project manager, for example, you would see that in a functional organization or an organization with functional structure, a project manager compared to a people manager or line manager, the project manager has little or no authority. But when you go to a projectized structure, then the project manager is more in charge of everything. In the same way, when you look at resource availability, the functional or line manager or the people manager has the resources and the project manager does not. And in a projectized organization, the project manager has resource available to his control. And there are other things like who controls the budget, that is the money. In a functional organization, the people manager or the line manager, depending on what you call it, controls that money. While in a projectized organization, the project manager does. And then the project manager's role is part-time in a functional because uh, he works on project basis and reports maybe to the functional management. While in a projectized structure, the project manager is fully in charge of all the things there and for a long term. And of course, the same applies to the administrative staff. So a project manager or leader gets people for a short period of time in a more functional structure, but can get people for full time in a projectized structure for a longer time. And in between there is a matrix structure which combines both functional and projectized. Depending on to what level of project manager authority, resource allocation or availability, who controls the budget, this can either be a weak matrix where it tends towards functional, or a strong matrix where it tends towards projectized, or a balance where it seems to be 50-50. So it's important as a leader or someone who is considering to go into a lead role to take these into account and understand them with respect to your own organization. And of course, that would be in addition to knowing what are the core values. Do they focus on trust or customers or innovation or integrity, responsibility? This kind of things matter. What are the organizational values and personal values? How are they linked? What kind of strategy do they use and culture that comes out of that organization? And cultures like a market-based organization where there is more stability and they want to have more flexibility and they go towards the market compared to a hierarchical one where it's more with control and procedures and they just don't want to allow things because that helps them achieve their goal. So none of this culture is bad. Talk about the hierarchical, the clan, the adhocracy, and the market. That depends on whether the company wants to be more internal focused with stability or control, or they want to be more external, to the market to reach out, but also keep some control to themselves. And depending on the level of flexibility as well and discretion, they can become any one of these. So if you want to be in a place where they allow creativity and flexibility, you have to choose the type of culture that suits you. And this is why sometimes not everyone can fit in a certain organization. And of course, you have to be sure that whatever the mission and vision and strategic goals are, those must lead to specific objective within your teams that leads to outcome which are good and that enables you lead your team in the right direction. So with this, you can at least understand why organizational structure, goals, values, and culture are important in your leadership role and journey. Thank you.